Good day and greetings from the Great White North. My name's Prickly Poo and welcome to day 24 of a year of change. I'm going to touch on something today that I briefly sort of mentioned in passing yesterday when we were talking about cutting out certain foods and stuff like that. And it was one of those things that you sort of mention and you think, I probably shouldn't talk about it because it's going to cause problems and people are going to start arguing and stuff like that. But it's all day. It was grating on me and to a point that so it's something that I figured that we should really talk about. And that's just basically there are a number of different foods that people look at and say, oh, you should never ever have that because it's horrible. It was milk, and then the main one was wheat. And that's sort of the one that I want to really touch on. The milk thing, I can sort of understand that there's fat in it, and it's probably not the best thing in the world, but certainly not poisonous to you. But the wheat thing has really sort of gotten out of hand, and when you look at the origin of it, it's really ridiculous. The whole thing started about 4 years ago. Back in 2011, there was a cardiologist named William Davis who wrote a book called Wheat Belly. And in it, he quite literally said that wheat was poison. And he was on television and on different newscasts and everything else, stating how bad wheat was for us because it was genetically modified and it wasn't the wheat that we had from 50 years ago, and it was just horrible. It was literally said it was a food that no one should ever eat. And of course, as people do, they jumped on the bandwagon and they started panicking and mass hysteria. And of course, it got to the point where we are now, where you have these different diets that say, no, you can't have bread because bread will make you fat. And I'm not talking about the gluten thing. There are some people that can't handle it. That's legitimate. I'm talking about the people that say, no, if you have a biscuit, then you're going to get fat. So basically what had happened, he had said that there were links to gaining weight, heart disease, cholesterol, just all sorts of horrible, horrible things that would happen to you if you ate bread. And a number of doctors, pretty much every doctor except for him, kind of went, that doesn't make any sense. We've been eating bread for literally thousands of years. And although we are fatter now, it doesn't seem to make sense that all of a sudden it's because the bread has changed. So they looked into it, and specifically looked into the studies that he said he had done. And what they found is that there were a number of things that he left out. There were a number of things that he changed. The results of tests he changed the numbers on it. To give you an example, it would be like saying, these numbers aren't the exact numbers that they had, but it would be like me saying to you, there was a study where 85 people stopped eating bread and every single one of them lost weight. Great. There's a study of 85 people and you think, well, obviously I should stop eating bread. But what these doctors found, it was the equivalent of them looking through the information and saying, yes, these 85 people lost weight, but what it doesn't say is that they lost an average of 3 pounds. They had also started an exercise regimen. They had cut out refined sugar, and they were eating regular balanced meals. On top of that, those 85 people were part of a large study of 1,000 people, and every other person gained weight. So unless you have all the information, it can be really, really misleading. And they found that he had ignored other tests that went against what he had said. He contradicted himself in his own studies. There were just such a huge number of things wrong with the information that he was providing people. And they've all reached the same conclusion that there is no connection between wheat or bread or anything else and obesity or heart disease or any of these things. I mean, obviously, if you eat a tremendous amount of anything, it's bad for you. But he had said that, there were some things, obviously, he said that were true, such as if you exercise and you eat right and stop eating greasy foods, you'll lose weight. But those are the things that I'm really concerned with. It was the fact that he grabbed onto this one thing and said, this is the one thing, this is the key. If you stop eating this, then you'll lose weight and your heart will get better and all this other stuff. And all the other doctors, when they went through all the information, they looked at his evidence, some of which had been falsified, some of which had been ignored, and they just said there is no connection whatsoever. It's completely unfounded. Now the problem is that here we are 4 years later, and people are still on that bandwagon. He still has a website. He's still touting his wares, so to speak, and saying that wheat is a horrible, horrible thing. And as I say, I'm sure there are some of you out there that have a gluten issue, and that's legitimate. So you're not who I'm talking about. With stuff like that, a friend of mine, her daughter has the same problem, and it was only recently, after 20-some years, that she realized that was the issue, and she's become much healthier as a result of cutting out gluten, or avoiding it, I guess it would be. So for those of you that have that, then that is a legitimate thing, okay? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that for the vast majority of people, eating bread is perfectly normal. It is a viable food. And yes, you shouldn't eat, obviously, half a loaf of bread or tea biscuits or buns or anything else in such a quantity that, you're slathering butter on it or peanut butter or whatever it is that you normally do. The rolls and the peanut butter would be my killer. Then, of course, you're going to gain weight that way, but it isn't the bread that's causing it. And there are a number of other foods that you've probably read about or had someone say that this was the one horrible food you should never eat. You see it online all the time. There's little ads and they'll say, learn the one food you should never ever eat. There's no magic food that you're going to stop eating that's going to cause you to lose weight, because that's not our problem. It's not, no one ever looks at it and goes, you know what? That's what it was. It was the salted almonds. That's what was doing me in. I cut them out and look, I've lost 500 pounds. It doesn't work that way. You can pretty much eat every food that's out there. There are a number of foods, obviously, that we should try to avoid because there's no nutritional value in it at all, and they're empty. Things like junk food, for example. The majority of junk food, we all know we shouldn't have it. We're still going to eat it every now and then. Even after you reach your goal, it's okay. The problem is some of us, our diets revolve around junk food. That's where our problem lies, plus the fact that we don't really do anything. But I just sort of wanted to touch on this because you see it a lot, and it's one of those things that just really gets on your nerves because people aren't paying attention. They just they latch onto a small piece of information, and that's what they base their diet on. So you have these diets that cut out bread, or they cut out one item or another item. And that's not going to help. I'm sure that there are some people that have done that, and it has helped, but it's not because it's the bread. It's because they've been eating so much of it. Would be a bad one for that. Cutting out bread entirely would be pretty difficult for me. I do like toast. I do like buns and muffins and everything else. And there's nothing better than bacon with toast, unless it's bacon with more bacon. It's a horrible thing to say, but it's true, and it's perfectly fine. I mean, I've gotten away from the white bread. And because it tastes chalky. Same thing with white pasta. I've gotten away from that because that tastes, I don't know what it is, the starch or something, but it tastes like I have a mouthful of chalk, and I haven't bought any in years. So I generally will buy like whole wheat bread or whole wheat pasta, which is really, really good. If you haven't tried it, definitely. Next time that you decide to buy pasta, go buy some whole wheat pasta. It has a much different flavor, and it doesn't have that weird chalk flavor to it. I know that's sort of off topic, but we'll get to that at some other food thing. Anyway, getting back to what I was talking about with wheat, there's, as I say, there are a number of different people that will grab onto one or more food items and say, this is the one thing that's going to do it. And we know that that's not true. So when you do see something like that, and I said this before, do your research, think for yourself, and go and look up the information on it. In this situation, for example, it's one doctor. Granted, he is a real doctor. He is a cardiologist. He's the one that came up with this. But even other doctors have gone since then, and there have been a lot of doctors that have looked at this information and have flat out said, no, it's not true. There is no link. He went through, aside from, giving false evidence and ignoring other things, he made connections that just didn't seem to fit. It would be like telling someone, oh, well, obviously they drowned. They drank water the day before. It's like, well, it's not the same thing. So do your own research. Go look at things if you find, even if you hear something from me, even this video, if you're watching this, go do your own research. Go look up Dr. William Davis and read the information that's on him. And you'll find out for yourself. Never take anything that anyone says at face value. And I think I touched on this a while ago. But I really wanted to sort of specify this one food item because it just seems to permeate everything now. And everyone seems to panic about it. So bread is fine. You can keep eating bread just, in moderation, like we spoke about yesterday. I, for one, am going to keep eating bread. I enjoy toast. I like sandwiches and other uses for bread, which I can't think of right now. Grilled cheese sandwiches, which are really, really bad. But that's not why I'm fat. It's not because I eat bread. And cutting out bread isn't going to stop that. So that's really all I sort of want to talk about. I'm going to start repeating myself, and I think I already have at this stage. So just sort of wanted to get that off my chest and a little bit of a vent, because I find that a lot of that stuff is ridiculous. We'll sort of tackle milk another time. That's another one that people, for some reason, more recently have said, no, we shouldn't be drinking milk. It's bad for you, and it's horrible, and humans shouldn't be drinking other animals' milk. And we've been fine for a very, very long time. But I haven't looked into it, so I can't really say for sure I think that they're right or wrong. So that may be something I can look into. As for right now, I'm going to keep drinking milk because I like it. Same with bread. So that is it for this video, though. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked it, please poke the like button for me. And in the meantime, keep yourself warm and fuzzy, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.